Taekook fan fiction. When the hot professor was his secret husband. Pure imaginations of mine, please do not take it seriously. There was something deadly attractive about Professor John Jungkook. Maybe it was the tight black dress shirts he wore with the sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal the veins and ink crawling up his muscular forearms. Maybe it was his sharp jawline, or the piercing glare from beneath those round silver glasses perched on his nose. But most likely it was the way he carried himself, cold, strict, and completely untouchable. He wasn't the kind of professor you flirted with. He was the kind you fantasized about in silence, biting your tongue and squeezing your thighs together under your desk as he paced at the front of the lecture hall, spitting harsh academic truth like bullets. He was merciless when it came to grading, emotionless when it came to excuses, and utterly intoxicating in everything he did. Every student wanted him, except one already had him. Kim Taehyung, the quiet yet strikingly beautiful fine arts major, was far more than just another name on Professor John's attendance list. Behind closed doors, behind carefully locked apartment walls and silenced phones, Taehyung was Jungkook's husband. Married. Ring hidden. Vows exchanged in secrecy. And no one knew, except Park Jimin, Taehyung's best friend, who had once walked into the wrong room during one of their heated weekends. That morning, the lecture hall buzzed with usual chaos as students filed into their seats, whispering and giggling about their professor. Taehyung, dressed in an oversized beige sweater and loose jeans, slid into his seat near the back and dropped his bag lazily. He didn't need to be in the front. He saw that body every night. But today the whispers were louder than usual. "I heard he has tattoos all over his chest too," one girl giggled behind him. "I swear if I get an A this semester I'm going to confess to him," said another. "He's just so hot when he gets angry." "He never even smiles," a third chimed in. "And that's what makes him sexier." Taehyung smirked to himself. If only they knew how that same cold professor moaned his name, how that emotionless face contorted in pleasure when Taehyung had him gasping against the headboard, panting, sweaty, undone. He leaned back in his chair, lazily turning his head to the door just in time for his husband to enter. Professor John Jungkook. Black shirt, black slacks, glasses low on his nose, a silver chain peeking from under his collar. He didn't even glance at the students as he strode to the podium. He began the lecture without a greeting, his deep voice rumbling through the microphone. "Last week's performance was pathetic. This midterm doesn't improve. I'm failing half of you. No mercy." Girls bit their lips. Guys sat straighter. And Taehyung crossed his legs slowly and smirked. Jimin, sitting beside him, leaned over with a grin. "Jealous?" "Not even slightly," Taehyung whispered with a cocky glint in his eyes. "He begged for it last night." Jimin muffled a loud laugh with his hand. Class dragged on, tension rising as Jungkook paced with commanding energy, the whole room spellbound by his voice and looks. When it ended, students scrambled to the front to ask questions. Or fake questions, just to be close to him. But Taehyung didn't need to play that game. He took his time packing up. And once the crowd thinned, he walked out, turning right instead of left, heading straight for the private faculty hallway. He knocked once on the last office door, the nameplate reading, "Professor John Jungkook, Department of Psychology." No answer. But the door was unlocked. Taehyung slipped inside, shutting it softly behind him. Jungkook stood behind his desk, fixing a pen in the drawer, not even glancing up. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. Taehyung didn't respond. Instead, he walked over slowly, a dangerous glint in his eyes as he shrugged off his sweater, revealing a snug white t-shirt clinging to his lean torso. "You were so cold in class, Professor," he whispered as he leaned against the desk. "Made me feel so ignored. I think I need your attention, husband." Jungkook looked up sharply, eyes dark behind his lenses. Taehyung. But he was already crawling onto his husband's lap, straddling him on the office chair, hips dangerously close. "Maybe if I'm naughty enough, you'll punish me tonight." His voice was sinful, soft, and filled with wicked innocence. "Like last week, when I teased you under the table at dinner." Jungkook grabbed his waist firmly, jaw clenched. "You're playing with fire." "Then burn me," Taehyung whispered against his lips. Their mouths met in a silent explosion, all teeth and heat and desperation. Jungkook's hands gripped Taehyung's thighs tight, fingers digging into flesh. But just before it could go further, a sharp knock echoed from the door. Taehyung pulled back instantly, breathless and glowing. "Go home," Jungkook said, his voice hoarse. "And don't wear anything under your robe." Taehyung chuckled as he buttoned his sweater and kissed his husband's jaw. "Yes, Professor." He slipped out seconds before a female TA entered the room, cheeks flushed. "Sir, I had a question about the upcoming exam." Jungkook sighed, flipping open a file to hide the bulge in his slacks and the wicked smirk on his lips. The moment the front door clicked shut behind Taehyung, he felt it, that heavy, charged silence that only meant one thing. Professor John Jungkook was home. Not the cold academic persona the university knew, but the dominant, possessive husband who kept his voice low and his touch commanding. Taehyung exhaled slowly, stepping deeper into their shared penthouse, dimly lit and sleek, black marble, glass, and deep leather furnishing. He padded silently to the living room, where Jungkook stood by the large windows in a tight black tank top and joggers, sipping whiskey as the city lights flickered behind him. "Come here." His voice was low, firm, dangerous. Taehyung's heart skipped as he walked over, slow, deliberate. Jungkook didn't turn, not until Taehyung was standing behind him, almost pressing his chest to his husband's broad back. "I heard," Jungkook began slowly, "you were quite the little tease today." Taehyung smirked against his shoulder. "You mean when I sat on your lap in your office, rocked my hips just right, and moaned your name like a bad boy needing discipline?" Jungkook turned and grabbed his jaw with one hand, hard enough to make Taehyung gasp. "You like making me lose control, don't you?" "I crave it," Taehyung whispered, pupils blown wide with desire. "Crave the way you pin me down, the way you break your own rules for me." Jungkook let go of his jaw and backed him up, step by step, until Taehyung's legs hit the couch. Then, he pushed him down gently, crawling over him with that lethal stare. "No teasing tonight," he growled. "You broke the rules. You acted like a brat in my office. Now I'm going to wreck the brat out of you." Taehyung's breath hitched. "Promise." Jungkook didn't answer. He kissed him, deep and rough, stealing the air from his lungs. His tongue swept in, dominating, devouring. He bit down on Taehyung's bottom lip until the younger man whimpered and arched under him. The robe was gone in seconds, and Jungkook's hands were everywhere, mapping his chest, trailing down his thighs, sliding between his legs. "Do you know what your punishment is tonight?" he whispered against Taehyung's neck. No, Taehyung barely breathed. You don't get to come until I say so, and I'm going to edge you, over and over, until you're crying under me. Taehyung moaned, eyes fluttering shut. Hell yes. Language, Jungkook growled. Yes, sir, Taehyung gasped, loving every second. That night, the living room turned into a battlefield of desire and dominance. Jungkook had him spread out on the couch, wrists pinned above his head, thighs trembling as he was brought to the edge again and again. His husband's voice was in his ear the entire time, dirty, commanding, laced with love and filth. You look so pretty like this, all ruined for me. Beg your professor to let you come. Say you're mine. Say you belong to me, not to the girls drooling in my lecture. I'll wreck you until you forget your own name, baby. Taehyung begged, and Jungkook finally gave in, but only after Taehyung was a shivering, teary-eyed mess, body oversensitive and mind foggy from pleasure and need. When they collapsed together after the final round, skin to skin, hearts pounding, Taehyung curled into his husband's chest with a satisfied hum. I love when you're cruel, he whispered. Your punishments feel better than heaven. Jungkook kissed the top of his head. You're going to be sore tomorrow. Worth it, Taehyung murmured, already drifting off. But just before sleep took him, Jungkook added in a low, teasing voice. I better not hear my name on anyone else's lips in class again. Or next time I'll make you take it in my office. Desk up, door locked, lights off, you'll ride your professor until you scream. Taehyung moaned weakly, clinging tighter. God, please. The next morning, Taehyung was limping. Not dramatically. He was far too proud for that. But enough that Jimin immediately noticed when he dropped into his seat at the back of the lecture hall with a strained hiss. You brat, Jimin whispered, side-eyeing his best friend with a knowing smirk. How many rounds? Taehyung bit back a smile, pulling his scarf higher to hide the light bruising on his neck. Lost count after the fourth. He had a point to prove. Jimin snorted. You poke the bear, Tae. Then act surprised when he devours you. I like being devoured, Taehyung replied smugly, reaching for his water bottle with a wince. You should try it sometime. Hard pass. I don't want to walk like a broken marionette. Before Taehyung could retort, the door creaked open and in walked Professor John Jungkook, punctual as always. Black turtleneck, slim-fit slacks, hair slicked back, jaw sharp enough to cut glass. And those glasses again, perched low on his nose like sin itself. Taehyung visibly shivered. Down, boy, Jimin hissed, elbowing him. He's literally lecturing. You'll drool on your notes. I don't need notes. I'll just ask my husband to tutor me, Taehyung whispered with a wicked grin. Jimin looked to the ceiling. Why did I agree to be the witness at your secret wedding again? But Taehyung wasn't listening. He was too busy watching Jungkook's hands, veined, tattooed, and casually clutching a whiteboard marker like it was a weapon. His voice echoed through the room, deep and controlled as he scrawled a psychological theory on the board. Taehyung chewed on the end of his pen, eyes full of heat. He knew Jungkook could feel it, that burning stare. He loved to make him uncomfortable in public. Watching that stone-cold facade crack bit by bit. And today he was feeling especially daring. About halfway through the lecture, as Jungkook turned to answer a question, Taehyung uncrossed and recrossed his legs, slowly. deliberately letting his boot brush his own thigh in the process. Jimin leaned over immediately. "Stop that. That's your husband, not your prey." "But he looks like both," Taehyung whispered. Then, as Jungkook glanced in his direction for a split second, Taehyung licked his bottom lip, held his professor's stare, and sucked the tip of his pen. Jungkook blinked. Just once. But Taehyung saw it. He smirked. The rest of the lecture passed with painfully slow intensity. Taehyung kept teasing in subtle ways, tracing patterns on his notebook, stretching his arms up to make his shirt ride just enough, and once purposely dropping his pen and bending over to pick it up. Jungkook didn't crack. Not visibly. But the moment class ended, his voice came sharp and low over the mic. "Kim Taehyung. Stay after class." Jimin winced. "Oh no." "Oh yes," Taehyung purred. Classroom cleared out, leaving the predator and his prey behind. Or rather, husband and his sinful brat. Jungkook shut the door slowly. Click of the lock echoed. Taehyung leaned back on the desk, licking his lips. "You called, Professor?" Jungkook stalked over slowly until he was standing right between Taehyung's thighs, towering above him. "What the hell was that?" "I was just being attentive," Taehyung whispered innocently. "Taking notes. Observing anatomy." Jungkook leaned down, face inches from his. "You're playing a dangerous game." "I've always liked danger. Especially when he bends me over." But Jungkook cut him off with a kiss, rough, teeth clashing, breath stolen. Taehyung melted against him. Hands gripping his husband's shirt, tugging, gasping as Jungkook's fingers slid into his hair and tilted his head back, exposing his throat. "You've been a little menace all day," Jungkook growled against his skin. "You want punishment right here?" "God, yes," Taehyung breathed. Just then, the door swung open. "Hyung, I forgot my... Oh my god." Jimin froze in the doorway, face flushing red like a fire hydrant. Taehyung leapt away from the desk like he'd touched a live wire. Jungkook straightened immediately, running a hand through his hair and adjusting his glasses like nothing had happened. "Jimin," he said calmly. "Do you knock with your eyes closed?" Jimin turned so fast and pressed his back to the door. "I am traumatized." "You've seen worse," Taehyung called out, still panting and half-flushed. "That was your thigh, Taehyung." "I saw your thigh." "I don't need this. Therapy costs money." Jungkook smirked. "Close the door on your way out." Jimin groaned loudly. "You both owe me dinner. Or trauma counseling. Preferably both." As the door slammed behind him again, Jungkook turned back to Taehyung, eyes twinkling. "Now, where were we?" Taehyung pulled him in by the collar. "On the edge of the desk. Mid-punishment. And very, very hard." For what happened in the lecture hall, Taehyung was banned, verbally and sexually, from teasing in class. But the rule didn't apply to office hours. Jungkook's private cabin was usually a place of silence and intellect. A space of thick textbooks, unsolvable equations, and endless academic authority. But ever since Taehyung discovered just how easily his professor husband could snap when provoked, that office had become a secret playground. That Friday, just after sunset, the campus emptied out. Most students had gone home, but one lingered. Wearing a cropped sweater, tight black jeans, and mischief in his eyes, Taehyung knocked once before slipping into Jungkook's office and locking the door behind him. You said you'd tutor me on stress relief, he whispered with a bite to his lip. Jungkook looked up from behind his desk, glasses perched low again, shirt unbuttoned just enough to hint at the tattoos swirling across his chest. I said I'd tutor you on stress psychology, he corrected. Taehyung tilted his head, stepping closer. Same thing. You're the one who said I'm a very stressed student. You're something, Jungkook muttered under his breath, pushing his chair back slightly as Taehyung climbed onto his lap without waiting for permission. Taehyung straddled him slowly, arms draped around his neck, hips pressing just enough to tease. I didn't wear anything under, he whispered in his ear. Just in case you forgot. Jungkook let out a deep, dark chuckle. You live to break my rules. I live to feel you break me, sir. Jungkook's fingers dug into his husband's waist, dragging him closer, lips hovering just at his throat. I should bend you over the desk, he murmured, voice husky. Take you right here where I grade exams. God, please do. And Jungkook did. He flipped Taehyung around, pressing him face down to the cold desk surface, robes pushed up, skin on display. The books scattered. Pens rolled to the floor. The office turned from academic to X-rated in a matter of seconds. Their whispers turned filthy. Every thrust came with words that melted Taehyung's bones. Keep quiet or the dean will hear you. You belong to me no matter who sees. Let them wonder why you can't walk straight tomorrow. Taehyung moaned into his arms, hair clinging to his sweaty forehead, body trembling as Jungkook gave him exactly what he begged for, punishment wrapped in love. But outside that locked door, trouble was brewing. Across the hallway, a female student named Seo Mina stood with a notebook in hand and confusion on her face. She had come to Professor John's office to ask about her project extension, but found the door locked and soft sounds filtering through. First, she assumed he was on a call. Then the sounds grew strange. Soft thumps, gasps, a low moan. Her eyes narrowed. Mina had always been one of those students, type who flirted a little too much, lingered after class a little too long, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, leaning in with questions she already knew the answer to. She had tried to seduce Professor John with hints and outfits and smiles. But he never noticed her. And now there was a voice behind that locked door. A very familiar voice. Kim Taehyung. Mina backed up slowly, rage blooming in her chest like wildfire. Impossible, she whispered, clutching her notebook tight. No way he's. Her brain raced. Why was Taehyung always hanging back? Why was John Jungkook always looking in his direction? And why did Jimin, Taehyung's best friend, always make weird faces when someone mentioned the professor? Her fingers clenched around her phone. If there was something going on between Taehyung and the professor, especially something illegal or against school policy, she'd find it. And she'd use it. Back inside, Jungkook held Taehyung against his chest, both of them still catching their breath. The desk was a mess. Their bodies were slick with sweat, and Taehyung had the most satisfied look on his flushed, glowing face. I'm failing psychology on purpose just so I can keep getting private lessons, he teased, nose nuzzling Jungkook's cheek. Jungkook chuckled, brushing his lips along Taehyung's jaw. You're not failing. You're just insatiable. Same thing. But neither of them knew what had just taken root outside. A dangerous little secret was now a ticking time bomb. The following Monday, the air on campus was unusually thick, as if something unspoken floated just beneath the surface. Whispers passed between students in hushed tones. Side eyes followed Taehyung down the hallway. He noticed. So did Jimin. "Okay, what the hell is going on?" Jimin asked, linking arms with him as they headed to their psychology lecture. "Why is everyone acting like you farted on the dean's desk?" Taehyung frowned. "I don't know. I didn't do anything." "Well," Jimin said dryly, "besides get railed into a desk by our professor husband." "Shut up," Taehyung hissed, face going red. Jimin snorted but suddenly stiffened. Taehyung followed his gaze. Mina was standing by the lecture hall doors, notebook clutched tight to her chest and an unsettling little smile on her lips. She was wearing a shorter than usual skirt and way too much perfume. When her eyes met Taehyung's, she didn't look away. She just smirked, knowingly. And that was when Taehyung knew. She knew. As they passed, she leaned slightly toward him and murmured, low enough for only him to hear, "You're not very quiet when you beg, Taehyung." He stopped in his tracks. Turned. "What did you say?" Mina tilted her head sweetly. "Nothing. Just thinking about how stressful university can be. Luckily, you have such a hands-on professor to help you through." Jimin stepped between them, eyes sharp. "Watch your mouth." Mina's smile dropped for just a second, then came back with twice the venom. "You might want to remind your little husband that office walls aren't soundproof." Taehyung's stomach dropped. His hands went cold. She winked and walked into the lecture hall, hips swaying. Jimin turned to him, whispering urgently, "She knows." "I know," Taehyung breathed, panic creeping in. "She's going to blow this up. Not if I talk to Jungkook first." That night, Taehyung stood in their apartment, pacing. Jungkook leaned against the kitchen counter, jaw clenched, still in his dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, hands balled into fists. "She said that?" he asked darkly. "She didn't say it outright, but she knows, Jungkook. And she's hinting loudly." She was smiling like she already had the ammo loaded. Jungkook exhaled slowly, jaw tight. "If she goes to the university board?" "They'll suspend you," Taehyung whispered. "You could lose everything." Jungkook looked up, eyes flickering with guilt and frustration. "And you'll be dragged into it. Your scholarship, your degree." "I don't care about that," Taehyung snapped. "I care about us." Jungkook reached for him then, pulling him into his chest, holding him tight. "We'll handle this. I won't let her touch what we have." Taehyung's voice was muffled in his shirt. "I think she wants something. She's not dumb. She wouldn't confront me unless she was planning something bigger. Then we'll find out what her game is and shut it down." But Mina wasn't done. Later that week, she cornered Taehyung in the library. Between rows of dusty books and shadows. "I haven't told anyone yet," she said sweetly, pulling a lip gloss from her purse. Taehyung didn't respond. His spine was straight, eyes unreadable. "But I could," she added. Unless what?" She smiled slowly. "Unless Professor John wants to give me special attention, too." Taehyung's fists clenched at his sides. "You're blackmailing him?" "I'm offering a deal," Mina shrugged. "I get a passing grade, maybe a little one-on-one time with the hot professor, and your dirty little secret stays buried." Taehyung laughed bitterly. You really think he'd touch you? She stepped closer, voice sharp. I think he might if the alternative is career suicide. Think about it, Taehyung. You're a problem. I'm the solution. Or, Taehyung said, stepping forward until they were inches apart, you're the girl who's about to get destroyed for threatening his husband. Mina blinked. You think he'll bow to you? You clearly don't know the man I sleep next to every night, Taehyung hissed. He's not scared of losing his job. He's scared of losing me. And with that, Taehyung turned and walked away. But his hands were shaking. Started with a whisper, then a text, then a storm. By Friday morning, the university halls were buzzing, voices laced with scandal, shock, and that addictive thrill of gossip. Did you hear? Apparently, Professor John is sleeping with a student. They said it's Kim Taehyung. No way! Isn't that illegal? Forget illegal, that's hot. Taehyung walked into the psychology building like he was walking through fire. Every step was heavier than the last. Eyes followed him from every corner. Some curious, some judgmental, some amused. And Mina? She was glowing. Jimin caught up with Taehyung just before his lecture and yanked him into the empty seminar room. Okay, Jimin whispered frantically, locking the door. It's all over the school. I don't know what the hell she said, but she made it official. There's talk of a faculty hearing. She told someone higher up, Taehyung swallowed. Is she naming me? Not directly, she said, and I quote, a certain male student has been privately involved with Professor John, using sexual favors to improve grades. Taehyung's stomach turned. It wasn't just a threat anymore. It was a career-destroying, reputation-obliterating accusation. She wants to humiliate him, Taehyung whispered, clenching his fists. She's dragging this out just to make it public. Meanwhile, Jungkook was sitting in the dean's office. The dean, an older man with stern glasses and a reputation for being ruthlessly by the book, tapped a file against the desk. I've received an anonymous complaint, he said flatly, claiming that you've had inappropriate contact with a male student, potentially violating faculty-student boundaries, ethical code, and grading impartiality. Jungkook sat still, calm on the outside, storm on the inside. The dean narrowed his eyes. Is there truth to this? Jungkook's throat tightened. He could deny it. He could lie. He could protect both Taehyung and himself. But the words wouldn't come, 'cause hiding it meant letting Mina win. And letting her imply that Taehyung used sex to pass his class was something Jungkook would never allow. So he spoke. Yes, he said, voice low. I've been in a personal relationship with a student. The dean blinked. Personal? Define personal. We're married, Jungkook said. Silence. The room froze. You're what? The dean whispered. I married Kim Taehyung last year. In secret. Outside university grounds. We kept it hidden to avoid bias. But it's real. It's legal. And it's based on love, not grades. By lunchtime, the university had exploded. The news spread like wildfire. Professor John Jungkook is married to his student Kim Taehyung. Whispers became gasps. People stared. Phones blew up. Jungkook was temporarily suspended, pending an investigation. He handed over his ID card, his office keys, and walked through the front doors with his head held high until he saw Taehyung standing at the steps. Their eyes locked. "Why did you tell them?" Taehyung whispered, stepping forward. "Because I won't let her smear your name like you're some pawn who slept his way to a grade," Jungkook growled, pulling him close. "You're my husband. I won't apologize for that." Taehyung's chest ached. "But now your career." "I can rebuild a career," Jungkook interrupted. "But I won't rebuild a life without you." And in front of dozens of staring students and faculty members, Jungkook leaned down and kissed him. Soft, proud, defiant. That night, Taehyung did something he never thought he'd do. He opened his phone, recorded a video, and posted it. "To anyone listening," he began, "yes, I'm married to Professor John Jungkook. We kept it private out of respect for the university's rules, and we expected backlash. But let me make something clear. I never asked for favors. I never needed help to pass. I fell in love with a man. Not a title. Not a grade. And certainly not for personal gain." He paused. "But if we're going down, it'll be together. And with our heads high. Because love, real love, doesn't need to hide." The internet broke. Thousands of shares. Support. Fan edits. Students rallying under hashtag Let Them Love. Even faculty quietly messaged support. And Mina? She vanished. She was called in for false manipulation of evidence and malicious intent. Her claims, once investigated, were proven empty and calculated. She was suspended. Jungkook's suspension? Lifted. 3 weeks later, Jungkook returned to his classroom, suit sharp, ring on his finger, no longer hidden. Taehyung sat in the front row now. He no longer flirted in class. But the look in his eyes? Still criminal. And that night, he'd be punished for it. The end. Hope you enjoyed it. Please come back for more Taekook fan fiction love stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Love you all.